Hi, I'm Joy.
Hi, I'm Lorraine.
And this is Girlish Gurus. And Lorraine, why are we here?
We're here to talk about mid-lifestyle topics for women who are 45 and older to help you live your best, healthiest, and most fulfilled life. We're also going to have lots of fun along the way.
So let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Girlish Gurus. I'm Joy.
And I'm Lorraine.
Ooh, Lorraine, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the Let Them Theory, how to stop controlling and start thriving.
Such a good topic.
Yep. So in this episode, we're diving into Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory, and we're going to explain how this simple yet profound mindset shift can change how we approach relationships, boundaries, and personal freedom, especially for women navigating midlife. And we'll discuss key takeaways, personal stories, research-backed insights, and practical ways to apply this philosophy in daily life.
I just love this book.
Yeah.
This is so important for us to discuss.
And as we were researching, of course, we each read the book, and then we had to go back and find our passages or aha moments, all of those kinds of things. And I realized I need to reread this book completely from start to finish. So.
It's like a continuous aha moment going through. Yeah.
So I thought a good way to start was just to explain what exactly is the Let Them Theory. And she does a good little blurb right in the first chapter of the book. So I'm just going to read a little bit of that, and then we'll jump into some discussions. So the first chapter is called Stop Wasting Your Life on Things You Can't Control. If you're struggling to change your life, achieve your goals, or feel happier, I want you to hear this. The problem isn't you. The problem is the power you unknowingly give to other people. We all do it, often without realizing it. You make the mistake of thinking that if you say the right thing, everyone will be satisfied. If you bend over backward, maybe your partner won't be disappointed. If you're friendly enough, maybe your coworkers will like you more. If you keep the peace, maybe your family will stop judging your choices. And she goes on to say, I know this because I've lived it. I spent years trying to be everything for everyone else. And I know we can all, relate to that.
100%.
Thinking that if I could just do enough, say the right things, and keep everyone happy, I'd finally feel good about myself. But what happens instead? You work harder, bend further, and shrink yourself smaller. And still, someone is disappointed. Still, someone criticizes. Still, you're left feeling like no matter how hard you try, it's never enough. Mm-hmm. I got chills just then.
I know. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, she's writing specifically about me.
And how many women out there, right? As women, we always feel that need for, perfection or to feel like...
Well, first and foremost, we as modern women in this day and age suffer from emotional labor burnout for the most part. And I never really knew what that term meant until I got older and I realized, first of all, it's from the 80s. And I realized, I get it because we are socialized that way. And
it is a cultural thing.
Of course.
Yeah.
All of us want our families and our lives to be the best they possibly can be. And one example that always sticks with me is when Brene Brown was talking about, and I can't remember when it was, I think it was in her Netflix special, when she was talking about if they missed church the previous Sunday, the next Sunday they would be early, they would be starched, they would be 100% looking like the perfect catalog family. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing.
Right. We're conditioned to be the fixers.
And so for women particularly, this is a very big deal. That's why I think it's hitting our zeitgeist so hard, is because we've been doing it for so long and it's such a huge stressor.
Yeah. And I love this quote. So this is a quote from her book. You don't have to fix, change, or convince anyone. Just let them.
Well, there it is.
It's hard, though. I mean, it really is.
Well,
as
especially
I was
for a
reading the
mom.
book, right? And we'll get into some of our aha moments. But as I'm reading through the book, I'm like, that is me. That is me. I can see where my kids respond to me certain ways because of the way I expect things to happen, or I try to fix things. Especially I have 3 adult children with their own children.
Right.
And the excuse I always give them is, well, let me just say that because I'm a mom and I feel like I have to, I feel like I haven't done my job if I didn't tell you that.
Imagine being a lawyer.
Yeah.
Then you have an extra big bat to swing. You can't do that, and here's the reasons why. Let me list them out for you. And then you automatically think you're right. But I can see how being a mom, that's like tied to your identity.
Yeah.
And you are worried about their welfare, and that makes it even more, makes it bigger.
And we discussed this in the last episode that we did. But it also comes from our upbringing.
Right.
A lot of it is just inherent in our being because it was the way we were raised, what we experienced. It kind of formed our personality, our character traits. And as women, we just naturally, I think, just take on everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, because we can. I'm just saying.
Yeah. We are the stronger sex.
By far.
Yeah.
But on top of that, my parents always said to me, I want you to do better than I did. Mm-hmm. So there's also that component as well.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
I don't know about this being just a 30-minute episode, Lorraine.
I know. Well, as we move on with our discussion, we're also going to be showing how the Let Them Theory can be a game changer for stress relief, for setting boundaries, and just overall self-care.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah. So the core idea about you have to stop controlling people's actions, reactions, or opinions and just let them, right? Instead of wasting energy trying to change others, we have to focus on our own choices. And so then she goes on to the let me theory.
Okay, so anyone who doesn't know this concept, I think the easiest way to say it is when someone's going to do something. Now, obviously, if they're going to do something that's putting them into like immediate physical harm, that's a different thing. That's not what we're talking about. And it's not what she's talking about. What we're talking about is you know someone who's about to make a choice that you can see it coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
It's not the best choice. Mm-hmm. And you have the instinct to stop them and head them off at the pass. And is that the best thing for you to do? Mm-hmm. And the answer to that is maybe not.
Yeah. She talks about what we're really trying to control.
Right.
Okay. And that we all have moments where we try to control the world around us, especially when we feel hurt, left out, annoyed, or afraid. And I know for me personally, I think that's where a lot of my control issues come from because I have a fear of maybe my grandchildren getting hurt or my kids making that wrong decision that'll affect their career or something. It does for me, I think, come from a fear-based
place of fear.
Emotion.
For sure. Yeah. I know that's true for me as well. Fear is the motivator and the driver for so much anxiety. And I mean, you can lay awake at night and spiral into a real pit. Just a pit of despair.
Yeah, just a little side note here. That just reminded me, I do follow Mel Robbins on Instagram, and she recently did a post about what you should do each day, like what she does each morning. And one of the things is and she says it twice, when your alarm goes off, get out of bed. And then she goes on to say it again. When your alarm goes off, get out of bed. Because often that's where our anxiety starts for the day. You're laying in bed wondering and worrying about the day that's ahead and what you have to do and what you haven't finished yet and what you need to accomplish. So basically she says, get out of bed and just get on with your day.
Well, the 5-second rule is what launched her. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right.
Before your brain engages, just do it.
Yep.
That is also something she discusses a little bit in this book, but that's also a powerful concept. Before your brain can talk you out of it, take action.
Yeah.
Because small actions matter.
Yeah.
I've said it for years. Small, consistent actions are very important.
All right, so on with this little blurb. Maybe you found yourself trying to manage every detail of a group plan to make sure everyone is included, or maybe you've stressed about whether people are upset with you and when they don't respond to your messages right away. It's exhausting, isn't it? And so she goes on to say, I'm a fixer by nature, and I think every woman listening probably can relate to that.
Yes, if you feel like you are a fixer by nature, go like this, woo, woo, and lift your hands. That's right.
Yep. She says, I've spent most of my life believing that if I didn't step in, If I didn't manage the situation, things would fall apart. I, to this day, struggle with that. And I know that comes from my childhood and just having to feel like if I'm in control, things will be okay.
Again, you know that if you're not doing A, B, and C, things will fall apart. And the thing that really, still to this day, can, if I'm not careful, keep me awake at night is, did I do this? Did I do that? Am I missing that deadline? Is that, what's going on here with that? What situation? Is the lid on that pot? Because I'm just inherently geared toward trying to head off that disaster. Yes, absolutely.
And how often do we beat ourselves up over something we did that we reflect on later?
Nonstop.
Yeah.
I should have seen that one coming.
Yeah, something you did or that you didn't do.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so she goes on to say, I had to be the one who kept everything together. Relationships, work, friendships, even the emotions of the people I love. And when something didn't go the way I expected, it felt like a reflection on me. If someone was upset, if something didn't work out, if I wasn't included, I automatically thought I had to fix it, change it, or control it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It just really hits straight to my heart.
Yep.
Really powerful. Well, the great thing about this theory is that, of course, Mel Robbins, she's also an attorney. Shout out. She does a lot of research to look into the Let Them theory. And so she's not just out there running her yap about it. She is actually checking things out. She's going and she's finding the science. And her psychological insight includes a couple of different things. One of them is radical acceptance. Wow, was that your stomach? What was that?
Oh, I think I...
Oh. Okay.
It might have been my stomach. I don't know. It's been acting up all day.
Oh, mine too. I tell you. It's like omelet. Yeah. So one of them is radical acceptance, and that's a principle from dialectical behavior therapy. Letting go of resistance to what we can't control leads to greater emotional peace. And our research turned up something else, and that is cognitive load theory. Overanalyzing or managing others drains mental energy, leading to stress and burnout. And that's a concept from Sweller in 2011.
This was one of the concepts that I think that I didn't quite realize was happening. Like, as I was going through life, as I was raising my children, as I was interacting in relationships and whatever, I kind of just thought, oh, this is the way it is, right? And not realizing that a lot of the burnout I was having emotionally was due to having to control, to having to feel like the fixer. I kind of just thought that was a normal part of life, and that's just what happens.
Well, I think part of it is also a trauma response too. But I think somehow we have just taken on that cloak of, okay, in order to avoid this, we have to do A, B, and C. And it's a continual thing. You can't ever set it down. But John Sweller is the guy who proposed the cognitive load theory. And I think in a lot of ways, she doesn't talk about this in the book, but it popped up in our research, and it does support her theory of when you're trying to get ahead of it and you're trying to give everybody the best possible experience all the time, it can lead to overload and burnout. So I think that's an important fundamental of the Let Them theory. And I appreciate that she goes in depth into research and ideas that support this theory. And she also talks about these principles being in other spiritual philosophies throughout time. She lists them out. You know, you can see it in Stoicism. You can see it in Buddhism. There's where she talks about radical acceptance, the detachment theory. And that teaches us to emotionally distance ourselves from situations that trigger us. Those are all things that really have been in my periphery for quite some time as I've been trying to overcome this natural tendency to try to fix everything and try to make everything better.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that she has a pretty substantial basis for the theory, and it's not just something that she's kind of pulling out of her back pocket.
Right. And especially for women in this midlife range where we could possibly be the sandwich generation, right? So not only could you be caring for adult children who are struggling and you feel like you have to fix what's happening, but you also have aging parents that you have to kind of deal with the situation, whether it be health, cognitive ability, different things. And
Trying to make good decisions.
Right.
But the problem with them is, they're adults and they have autonomy. They can say no.
Yeah.
And you can't force them to do things.
Right.
So that's a whole other bag of issues that actually I am dealing with right now.
Okay.
So
both of us.
Yes. Yes. And we've talked about that a little bit before
Yeah.
here and there. But yes, I think for women in midlife, this is an especially important skill to learn because it is a skill, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a matter of survival, actually,
Yes.
right? For your own well-being, your mental health as well as your physical health, because obviously anxiety and stress shows up as physical symptoms in our bodies. So
yeah.
it's a struggle, especially during these years. It's a struggle. And this book, I think, does help guide and provide those, why am I doing that?
Right.
Like kind of moments.
I'm trying to teach myself, okay, you got to set that burden down. You can't continue to drive that bus, or you can't continue to worry about that. Wow, that's such a big deal. And now there's like dueling lawnmowers out there. Right? You hear it, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if you can hear it in the podcast, but I think from now on, Joy and I are going to send out a notice to her neighbors.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Whatever. Another thing that I think this really affects us as women in midlife, as we're going through perimenopause and menopause and becoming postmenopausal, people who don't care about menopause or think it's not a real thing, or they have issues with your choices, how you're dealing with your wellness, that is something very profound to think about as well. Like, okay, you're having these kinds of difficulties and you are choosing to manage it in this way for whatever reason you feel is necessary.
Yeah. In my world, right, in the menopause world, there's, and we can say it, there's HRT versus holistic for a lot of women. I'm not against either.
Right.
I'm actually for whatever makes women feel better, but women are judged based on their choice of whether they're going to do hormone replacement or not.
Right.
And I don't think that's fair because there are options on both ends. And for many women, HRT can be
A lifesaver.
a lifesaver. For others, they manage quite nicely and live a very good life without the hormones. As a
Right.
matter of fact, some women can't use hormones due to estrogen-related cancers and different things like that.
Right.
So I know, we hear it all the time, that women judging other women based on their health choices and everything else. I think we need to just let them
Or make their choice.
make their choice.
Right.
And you let you. And as we're at that point, I did want to read a little bit about the let me part of the Let Them theory.
Right. So this is something that I think is very, very important.
Yeah.
In fact, this is really the valuable part of this equation is the let me part.
So she says here, let them is just the first half of the equation. You cannot stop there. There is a second critical part to the theory. Let me. The source of your power is not in managing other people, it's in your response. When you say let me, you're tapping into that power by taking responsibility for what you do, think, or say next. Let me makes you realize that you are in control of what happens next and that life is more fun and fulfilling when you're not sitting alone in your superiority.
That's just funny. I mean, it's not funny, haha. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
You are going to sit there and marinate in your angst, or you're going to get up off your couch and go nurture that relationship or look for that job or make some other choice. Be someplace else that makes you happy.
She goes on. That's why the theory only works if you say both parts. When you say let them, you make a conscious decision not to allow other people's behavior to bother you. And when you say let me, you take responsibility for what you do next.
Right. I love that. Like, for example, you've been passed over for the promotion. You've done everything you're supposed to be doing, and you're still not moving forward. So what are you going to do? You're going to sit there at your job and continue to complain? Or are you going to decide, okay, you know what, I'm going to update my resume. I'm going to start looking for a better situation. And it's not fun to do.
Yeah.
She does talk about that in the book as well.
Or a side hustle.
Right. Or a side hustle. Start a podcast. It's not necessarily fun, although the podcast is fun. I'm just saying.
It is.
it might not be fun to make the changes and to do the work, but that's what it takes to get to a better position. And that better position is out there.
Yeah.
You just have to do the work.
And she's got a great quote about that. The people who see your value will show up. Yeah. Let them.
That's right. But they can't show up if you're not making the effort to update your resume, network, make phone calls.
Kind of like manifestation, right? Manifesting isn't just about sitting back and waiting for things to come to you. You've got to take the steps to make it happen.
Right. Jim Carrey said, you can't just say, I want $10 million and then go sit at home on your couch and eat a sandwich.
Right.
You actually have to take inspired action to go and make those things happen. Right. Good stuff right there. You can't beat that with a stick. Hey, Lorraine, don't forget, it's time for us to schedule our Lifeline Screening appointments. They're 5 simple tests to help us keep on top of our heart and bone health, which is important for women over 45.
Yes, Lifeline Screening has been the premier provider of preventative health screening for over 30 years. In that time, over 10 million people have had screenings to detect their risk of stroke, cardiovascular disease, and other chronic illnesses. Lifeline Screening can provide meaningful benefits for your body and mind, and that's why they're committed to delivering accurate results and recommendations that could give you a healthier advantage in your everyday life, such as early detection of serious conditions, prevention of disease progression, peace of mind so you can enjoy life, savings with more affordable screenings, and no insurance required.
Yep, and don't forget, by using the link in the show notes of this episode, you get a special offer available to Girlish Gurus listeners, so make sure and schedule your appointment.
Get peace of mind now. Here's to your good health. So as we're reading about relationships, where it comes to how maybe the Let Them Theory affects our relationships, things that have happened to us in the past, I've personally had to say goodbye.
Oh.
Okay.
Preach.
To one particular friend, maybe two, because in the beginning, I was really trying to help this person and I would always be there. And at the time, I had 3 young children and I would be like so busy during the day trying to take care of them. And she would always pop over and I would always stop. I would make her a cup of tea. I would sit and we would, and it was always like a love relationship problem or something. And I wanted to be there for her.
Right.
It was a friendship. But as the years went on, we kind of moved apart, geographically apart. And it was always that she would call me and say, you never call me. Or if I did call her, it would be like, well, it's about time, those kinds of things where life was so crazy at the time. I had a husband going through cancer. I had a son going to Iraq. And this person just was not accepting that, I guess, or couldn't understand that part of my life. And I always felt like I was constantly apologizing, making it good, making it better. Until one day I felt the burnout from that friendship. I just felt like it was eating me up inside. It was giving me anxiety. And I finally had to talk. And I said, I'm here for you if you need me, but
I can't keep doing this.
I can't keep doing this.
Right. Yeah. Well, what about when that person is your family member?
Yeah.
The Let Them Theory applies. Mm-hmm. I get all the things that she's saying, but I also get the real world situation where you can't say to your older parent or whatever,
right? I
can't sit here.
That's my stomach.
I don't have the emotional capacity to let you just dump on me. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, in my notes, I actually wrote a note to myself about being able to forgive.
Oh.
Like, even though you have to let them and you can't let it supposedly affect you, I think part of it not affecting you is being able to forgive that person or forgive them for certain things. I guess especially if it's family, because, I'm Italian. Family's everything.
Well,
but I can see the benefit, and even as far as your own mental well-being, of forgiving someone. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that you have to allow them to walk all over you or to...
Well, sometimes they're not even asking for
anything.
Right. They just want to... It takes a lot of emotional capacity.
Energy vampire.
Yes, there it is.
Yeah.
So that is something that, You have to think about, okay, well, how can I apply the let them theory there? You are searching for a way to protect yourself emotionally from that kind of...
Right, and that's where boundary setting comes in, right? If this person is still going to be in your life, maybe speaking up, setting boundaries, that's how you...
Having a hard conversation,
Yeah.
I guess, but that means you're going to lose that relationship.
Possibly. Unless you hand them the book.
Haha. Well, if it doesn't have pictures, they're not going to read it.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There are situations where you can apply the let them theory, but you have to do it internally. You might not be able to come out and say,
Right.
this is a boundary for me with you.
You're allowing them to still be in your life, and you're just setting your own boundaries.
And that is a whole other level of managing your emotions and emotional regulation. Mm-hmm. And that's another skill maybe we can talk about at some point. But that's something that I think about with regard to the theory and a real life application, especially in the sandwich generation, where you have older parents who you've played that role for so long. How do you move out of that emotional drain? Mm-hmm. It's tough. It's very difficult. But I have been contemplating how to make that happen. So,
Can you help me?
I tell you what, I am going to get Mel Robbins on the phone. I'm going to talk to her. We're going to have a special little bar meeting.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about how to make that happen, especially in circumstances where you can't have the hard conversation.
Yeah.
That's something to think on. Listeners out there, if you have any ideas, please let us know.
Yeah.
Give us a comment or reach out to us.
On social media.
On social media, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear from listeners on how they handle this or what they may see as an aha moment listening to this. And after they read the book especially.
Oh, yes. Get the book and read it. It's a good read.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as we were addressing all of that and relationships, obviously it affects our own self-care and emotional well-being.
Right. It can produce deeper, more meaningful relationships too, though, if you're able to have those conversations. You're right, because that other person could come back and say, oh, I did not realize I was being an emotional vampire. Right.
Right, because we go on for years and years just in this same
format.
Yeah, in a relation, I guess in a relationship format, and it just becomes just second nature. It's just this is the way you relate to that person, and until you actually maybe sit down and
well, first you have to become aware of it.
Yeah,
and then you become aware of it, and you decide I want to start making a change here, and then
actually this book does make you become aware. It helps you to become aware,
which makes it all the more valuable.
Yeah. Okay. I think this might fit in. So as we were researching, I went back to this chapter, and the chapter is called When Grownups Throw Tantrums. And I think this might be the perfect spot to talk about it.
Okay.
So now let's dive into how you have allowed other people's emotional reactions to influence your decisions. The reality is adults are as emotional as children, and it is not your responsibility to manage someone else's reactions. As long as you let other people's emotional immaturity dictate your choices, you'll always come last in your own life.
There it is. Wow.
And she goes on to say she had no idea how big of a problem this was for her, and it kind of made me think about it too. You know, I didn't even think about it. Again, thinking, oh, this is life, this is normal, whatever. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, I don't know. I've always been more of the people pleaser. My mother was that way.
I think most women are.
Well, yeah, that's true. And I'm more like my mother in that regard. And I'm always trying to keep the peace and trying to help everybody get along as best as they possibly can.
Like she writes this, and this might be, she says, I had no idea how big a problem this was for me, and neither do you. From navigating guilt trips to fearing disappointments to worrying about someone's reaction or if now is the right time to tiptoeing around someone's mood, you're allowing other people's behaviors and reactions to drain your energy.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
She says, but it goes deeper than that. Their passive-aggressive behavior, guilt trips, and emotional outbursts are driving your decisions.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah.
This is why you say yes when you really want to say no.
Oh, 100%.
And you cave when you should stand firm. This is why it's hard for you to set boundaries. This is why you walk on eggshells when certain people are in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, it feels easier in the moment to give in to your sister's guilt trip, but in the long run, you lose a crucial piece of yourself. When every interaction with your girlfriend or boyfriend leaves you emotionally exhausted, ask yourself this: why are you always the one who has to adjust? Why do you take on the responsibility for someone else's happiness at the expense of your own?
That is true. Well, I have found that in that circumstance, what winds up happening is the person who is being difficult, people avoid them. People make the decision to find someplace else to be. So that cuts both ways, really. But again, if it's a family member and you have to maintain that relationship, then you get to a point where you've got to have that hard conversation. And hopefully the other person is mature enough, emotionally mature enough, to come back and say, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that I was being difficult. Or in my case, you have someone who no longer has the capacity to see the negative consequences of their behavior. They don't get it.
Yeah.
And so that's a complicated thing that you have to work at as well.
And holding on to resentment can trigger your sympathetic nervous system, increases cortisol levels and inflammation, and again, then manifests into other things in your body. So if you're not talking to this person, if you're not coming to some kind of a
resolution.
Thank you. If you're not coming to, I was going to say conclusion too, but if you're a resolution, then you're storing resentment. It just manifests itself into that, and not good for your health, not good for your body, not good for your relationship or other relationships, because obviously that one what is happening in that one relationship can definitely affect
everything else.
Especially if it's a family member.
Right.
Can affect so many other relationships.
Well, that brings me to another point that she talks about in depth in the book, and that is the stress response. And how we, as a culture, are really living in a high-stress survival mode pretty continuously. And how the Let Them theory can be like, I think how she puts it in the book is, according to Dr. EDT, it's like a sigh of relief for your stressed brain, because it helps you reclaim control over your anxious thoughts so that your brain and body can finally get out of survival mode and back to thriving. So that whole fight or flight situation, and you're hearing a lot about that all over. Everybody's talking about
that's why I'm writing a book right now about it, about the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve. Everybody's talking about that right now and how that's negatively affecting you, the mind-body connection, etc. And if the Let Them theory can help you circumvent that and get back to that parasympathetic.
Rest and digest mode. So the sympathetic is the fight or flight, and parasympathetic is
rest and digest. Right. So if it can help you get back there, then I strongly encourage you to start practicing it right away.
Yeah. There's a neuroscience fact that letting go of control increases dopamine and serotonin, leading to a sense of well-being.
Boy, that's
I know it's
deal.
so hard. It is so hard to give up control.
Well,
or the
you
feeling
don't
that
really have it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
The feeling that you have to control things.
You think you have control.
Right.
You don't really. The only thing you can control is you and your response to whatever's happening.
And we have to have the power of saying, not my circus,
not my monkeys. That's right. Yes. Although I do enjoy the circus. And monkeys.
and monkeys.
Yes.
Although we had a neighbor who had a monkey, and every time I walked by their house, the monkey would go crazy. And when I finally went to visit it, it pulled my hair.
Aw.
Yeah. They had a little spider monkey. For some reason, it did not like me.
Aw.
And I'm an animal lover.
Well, I don't know. It must have had some type of neurological thing going on there. That's not normal.
That's not normal. That was funny.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the theory. We've talked a lot about practical application. Why do you think it's so hard to apply the Let Them theory?
I think we've just been so conditioned our whole lives to be, especially as women, almost that we're not successful or we're not doing our job if we're not fixers, if we're not in charge, if we're not in control, that it's almost like we have failed at something. And I think it's hard to overcome that concept of feeling that it's not failure. It's like we said before, it's a matter of survival.
Right.
That you can't feel like you have to control everything.
Right. And if you have young children, you obviously have to drive that bus.
Right.
You have no choice.
Yeah.
They can't do it themselves.
Right.
And you need to make sure they're not putting their hand on the hot stove, those kinds
Yeah.
of things. But as they get older and as you have the opportunity to help them, and some people are never going to be able, they have special needs children or whatever, they're never going to be able to completely pass off that type of management to their children.
Well, there's a certain amount of guilt, I think, that comes with it. Women feel guilt if they feel like they haven't done everything that they can do to make something perfect. Guilt of not doing enough. And we had shared this before we came on to the podcast about, like, even when I'm like talking to my son or my daughters and I tell them something like maybe advice.
You don't see the air quotes.
Advice. See, and that's how I look at it, right? It's advice. It's wisdom. But might not be taken that way. And I'll always say to them, I feel like if I'm not doing, and I actually do say this, verbally say this to them, like almost as if it's an apology for saying it, because I know I probably shouldn't be saying it. But I'll say, I'm a mom. I feel like if I don't tell you this, I haven't done my job.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a problem. I'm working on it.
Yeah. That's not a problem I have. I don't have not being a parent, I don't have that. But I am a person who can see things coming. And I'm like, you need to look out for this, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. And I'm working on managing that, because adults are allowed to think whatever they want to think. Mm-hmm. And adults are allowed to conduct themselves in whatever way they see fit. And so it's not my place to try to influence that. And she talks about this a little bit too in the book, even when it's in their best interest.
Right. You feel somebody's about to make a big mistake, but that's not our place.
Unsolicited advice can be a tricky situation.
Yeah.
Now, people ask me for advice a lot. Of course, that's true because I'm a lawyer, but also just people who I know personally, they ask me for advice.
They respect your opinion.
Well, they do to a certain extent, yes. And I still have to be careful, and I still feel like it's one thing to try to give them what I feel like is their best course of action, but I try to temper that with the understanding that they are autonomous and they have the right to take the advice or not. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's also a difficult situation to be in.
I guess, I've told my kids about this book, and I told them that they each need to read it too, so that they know how to have a relationship with me, because the same way I have to let them, I feel like they have to
let
me for their health and their benefit. And then we will together have better relationships. Right. And I think it is a very important book or theory, even if you don't want to read the book or whatever, you can do your own research or whatever. But I highly recommend reading the book and sharing it with family members or those that you love, because I think it could help relationships be better. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So there are some practical tips that she has come up with in the book to make it easier. And some of these things are to pause and reflect. Before reacting, ask yourself, am I trying to control this person or situation? And what happens if I just let them? And there's a mantra, I cannot control others, only my response.
Very good.
And start small. Let someone have a different opinion without trying to change it. Ooh, this is a big one in this world.
I don't know about that starting small.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big one.
Yeah. And sometimes, I've added this, sometimes this means walking away, like I had with certain friendships. I think it also benefited them because then they didn't have the reaction they were having with me, and it led to less anxiety for me too. Yeah.
And I think that it's okay to let toxic relationships go.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And also, as you start to change and you become a more introspective person and you are less reactionary, you're less apt to give that kind of expected response. Those relationships tend to fall away. You know, it's like a person who is an alcoholic and they stop going to the bars, then they stop moving in that circle.
Right.
And they start having different relationships with different people. I think it's the same kind of situation to a certain extent.
And she talks a lot about that, about friendships, right? What are the 3 pillars of friendship? Are proximity, timing, and energy. And so she talks about how early in life that you make very close friends because you spend so much time with them. It's like, I think she uses the 200 hours. Spending 200 hours with someone leads to knowing them better, to having a closer relationship.
Gosh, Lorraine, we spend thousands of hours together.
I know. Well, this was one of the things I wanted to talk about. So that's proximity, right? You're with these people. And then when you go to college, you are living in the dorm with them. You're you're eating with them. You're doing all this. So you have close relationships. And then she talks about the scattering, right? So once you graduate college, everybody moves to different areas. You're not as close anymore. And so you have to kind of work at those relationships, keeping them together. And then the second one was timing. You may be at a different phase in your life. You may be of a different age. You're working with people who are older, younger than you, and you may not have things in common. So it's where you are in your life, what stage you are in your life. And then the third one was energy. And that's where I saw my friendships changing, because we mature, we are changing, and you are feeling a different energy with people that you clicked with before. And now that energy has changed, and it becomes like an energy vampire, as one example, or just like a different, you in your gut, it just doesn't feel the same.
Right.
But what I wanted to talk about was proximity. So when Joy and I first met, there's 2 things. This actually incorporates 2 of her chapters. One is the let me theory, where it comes to let me be the one to ask, like if you want to make new friends, right? Mm-hmm. So you're in a different stage of your life, and now you're finding it harder to make friends. Instead of waiting for someone else or whatever, let me be the one to invite this person. Let me be the one. So I knew Joy from our networking group. I knew that she was a writer. I thought she was hysterical. And a writing workshop was coming up in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I invited Joy to come. I said, would you like to go to this conference? I'm going to drive up there. And she said, sure. So we spent 7 hours on the way up. We shared a bed together.
No. We had separate beds. We shared a room.
Oh, we shared a room.
Yeah.
But we did share a bed once in New York. Right.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. We shared a room, and we were there for 2 nights, I think. And then we shared the 7 hours back. So we spent a lot of time getting to know each other. Yeah. And from there, we started going to other events. New York, Arizona. Italy, yeah. Mm-hmm. So we have spent a lot of time together and it's sleeping in the same room a lot.
Yes.
So we have shared a lot, and we have created this, not just a friendship, right?
Right, but it's
a business, and a fun business. Mm-hmm. And so be the one, like she says, I just want to read this little bit about the habit of going first, because it could lead to a wonderful friendship, a new friendship. Right. Let me be the first to introduce myself. Let me be the first to say, I'm new here. How long have you lived here? Let me be the first to say, if you ever want to go for a walk, let me know. Here is my number. And slowly but surely, one awkward conversation at a time, you will meet people.
That's right. I don't know. I don't really have awkward conversations mostly now that I'm not taking clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can think of some funny ones, but...
Well, you're very personable, and I don't think you would ever have trouble like making friends.
No,
but I
never.
do know people in my life that don't seem to make friends that easily, or they're very introverted. So hopefully there's somebody else who is using the Let Them Theory or the Let Me Theory to meet them.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Because you could be missing out. You never know. I'm always interested in somebody's story. I'm always interested in meeting somebody, talking to them. My mother used to tell me, you're very approachable. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Yep, that's me. I'll put on my circus hat and I'll come over and,
Yeah, well, I'm so glad I met you.
I know. And then here we are so many years later. Ta-da, podcasting. Ta-da.
And we shared a little bit that there'll be some exciting things coming up. We can't talk about them yet.
Right, but they're coming.
They're coming.
Get ready.
Exciting things that we're going to share with you, and you'll be able to share with us.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so any final thoughts or takeaways that you think we should share with the audience? I know I have a couple.
Go ahead.
So I do think that one of the things this book really kind of highlighted for me is that it's never too late. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mel Robbins was 54 when she started her podcast. And she was in her 40s when she started her public speaking career. So the last episode we just did, we talked about women who found success later on in their lives. Well, she's one of them.
Yeah.
And she's taken the world by storm.
Oh, yeah.
So
this book was #1 for I don't know how long, right?
Might still be. Who knows?
Yeah.
But her story is pretty incredible. She was going through some very, very difficult times. And all of those things set her up for this current success that she's enjoying. And I feel the same way. I feel very simpatico. She had a law career. She's done a lot of different jobs. So have I. I'm a lawyer too. I've had so many different jobs. And really, all of those things were setting me up for this new chapter of my life. So just in that regard, I feel like the Let Them theory combined with the fact that she's had that personal foundation that has set her up for this. But the Let Them theory also allows you to create space to focus on yourself and to pursue your own hopes and dreams and wishes. One of the things we didn't talk about, but that I do think is very important, and that is stopping the whole social media comparison.
Oh, yeah.
And she talks about how she wasn't posting on social media because she was afraid of what people think. And that goes hand in hand with that whole comparison issue. And practicing the Let Them, Let Me theory puts you in that space where you no longer concern yourself about what people think, because they're going to think what they're right.
The trolls.
They're going to think what they're going to think.
Yeah.
Right? Adults are allowed to think whatever they want. And so that's going to happen. So you just go ahead and do what's right for you. You pursue your own happiness and your own goals and dreams. And so I'm in that space, and I've been there for a while, finger puppets and all. I'm just saying. So for me, that's probably, in a nutshell, the two biggest takeaways. The theory itself, I will honestly tell you that I kind of already knew this, because I've been working on myself for so many years. I already have been at that point where I've just been like, I'm letting you go. I'm surrendering that. That's not my issue. You are not my concern. I cannot be the person to make you feel better. That's up to you. So I've already been in that space. The most important thing I took away from this book is, it's okay for me to now go forward and do those things that I've been dreaming of for so long. And we talk about that a lot on this podcast too. So those are some pretty big takeaways for me.
And for me, seeing myself, seeing how my reactions, how I approach my relationships with maybe thinking I have to fix everything, how that was affecting my mental health and my physical health. Those were aha moments for me, because throughout the book, it was like, oh my gosh, that's me. So actually being vulnerable enough to see yourself and accept that, okay, I need to change me and let me take care of me. That was a big one for me, you know?
Huge.
Yeah. And I really do want my kids to read this, because I want them to be able to see me in those pages, not repeat with their own children, right? And I'm not saying this like I feel, oh my God, I feel guilty. I was an awful mother or something.
I seriously doubt that.
No, I'm just saying, because I felt like I needed to control certain things in their lives, I realize now that that's not healthy, and that I need to let them live their lives, and I need to be able to accept that I don't have to control everything, that everything will be okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Powerful stuff.
in the conclusion to her book, there was a sentence I wanted to read. Okay. You and I have spent a lot of this book talking about others, their opinions, their emotions, and the ways their actions annoy, anger, frustrate, or disappoint you. But this book isn't really about other people. It's about you. If you think it's about them, you've missed the point. If you still think other people are the problem, you need to go back and read this entire book again. The truth is simple. You hold the power, and you are the one who has been giving it away.
That's right. Oh, doesn't that just feel like a sigh of relief for your brain?
Yeah.
That's good stuff right there.
Yeah. So maybe we have to ask our listeners to identify one area to apply the Let Them theory this week and share their experiences like we asked them on social media. Send us a comment on YouTube
Or an email.
Or an email.
And just let them tell us how the Let Them theory changed their perspective.
Yeah.
because it can change your life.
Yeah.
All right. I do love this final thought.
Oh, yes.
And this is going to be,
okay.
I think, the most, you do it.
You don't want to do it? You do. You can. Go ahead.
Okay, so as we wrap up, I just want to leave you all with this final deep thought. Okay? When you let go of controlling others, you gain control of yourself. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. I promise.
Wait, the three fingers salute.
Right.
Yeah.
I promise.
I promise.
To give up controlling others.
To give up controlling others.
So I can gain control of myself.
So I can gain control of myself. Yay.
Amen.
Amen. Oh, boy. On that note, thanks for listening and for watching. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. The extended versions are being posted there with bloopers and other fun stuff. And also, please stay tuned. We've got more fun stuff coming up. Please give us a like, a share, a review, and download this episode. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye. Mwah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Girlish Gurus. We hope you'll join us next time for more fun and inspiration. Be sure to check the description of this episode for links and information about the topic, and you can find us on our social media platforms starting with Instagram, Facebook, and now including YouTube. You can find us by searching Girlish Gurus, and you can also check out our website, girlishgurus.com, for more information on us, our projects, books, and our growing community.
And don't forget to download this episode, give it a good review, and share it with your girlfriends. We would also love to hear from you in the comments because the more interaction we get, the more episodes we can post. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.